Hi, I'm Diane O'Hearn. I'm an artist and I'm also an instructor here at the Blanden Art Museum, and this afternoon I'm so glad that you're all with us and we're doing this virtual watercolor class. We're just going to be going through some very basic techniques with all of the materials that you have, and then we're going to be doing a still life painting at the end. So I'm so excited that in your kit you have all of these wonderful brushes. We're just going to quickly on one of your papers that you have at home, just try some different line techniques and some different strokes with this brush so you get a feel of what the brush will do. I have some tape. You don't have to tape your paper down, but some artists do. They like to take their watercolor paper and tape it to either a board or just tape it to your table, so then it's not going to go anywhere when you get it all wet and the waters are running here and there and everywhere. Then it can just dry on its own and the edges will not curl up. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that right now. Get the tape on, and as you can see, this is all ready to go and ready to paint. We're just going to do a little practice before we start our good original painting. This brush that you have that's really quite wide and quite rounded too, that's the one we're going to be using first. So you can just take that brush out of your package that you have there, and you can dip it in the water and get it wet. You can put that brush in any color that you would like. I'm going to start off with a little blue. You can roll that brush around and around in the watercolor. And what we're going to do first with this is just make a line that goes across, and as you can see, it's very thick. Okay, then we're going to get our brush wet again and roll it around and around in one of the colors. And the next thing we're going to do is take that brush and just use it like it's dropping down, and we're going to use the very tip and pull it across, and then we're going to make a line that you can tell the difference. It's the opposite. It's just very thin and very fine. So using the very thick lines is really good for the background, and then when that's dried you can come in and use the very tip of your brush to get some fine lines for details. So that's really some things that you can do with that brush. Go ahead and dip it in the water again, and now you're going to pick another color. Green is really a good color to use. That's what I'm going to use, is green right now. And as you can see, I'm just getting my paintbrush really loaded. I'm just spinning it around and around. It's all full of color. Okay, and this technique called rolling the brush is very fun to do. You're going to take your brush, hold it parallel to your paper. It's just like your brush is right on the paper. You know, it's down, and what you're going to do is hold your fingers at the end of your handle, and you're just going to roll it across your paper just like it is you rolling down a hill. Your brush is just going to roll, roll, roll. And you can go ahead and dip your brush in the water and swirl it in the watercolors. Get it loaded up again. Perhaps it's not as dark as you want, and then you can try it again. Just take that brush and just roll it across your paper. Okay, it really makes a really neat pattern, a neat line. A lot of artists like to use this for painting a landscape and making the trees in the background. It's fun to roll your brush and layer the colors as well. You can pick another color, possibly the complementary color of what you used, and you know the complementary color of green is red, so I'm just going to take a little red on this brush And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to roll it across again, close to the same line that I used first of all. And this technique of rolling your brush, you're just pushing it across, creates a very nice look. You know, it's not only used for landscapes, it can be used for whatever you can imagine. If you're painting your name, the letters of your name, maybe you'd like to roll your brush to add some different textures and variety. It does have a lot of dark and light areas that's there for you. So that's just one way to do is rolling your brush. Then you can take the big flathead brush that you have in your package. That brush is straight across the top, okay? And with this straight edge across the top, you can dip it in the water and put it in any color that you would like. Just swirl it around and around so it gets loaded up in the watercolors. And when you're using this flathead brush, you can make thick and thin lines, okay? You can pull down and it's going to be thin, and you can pull across and it's going to be thick. Pull down and it's thin. Pull across and it's thick. Pull down using the tip and it's thin. Just not too much of a problem to make dark areas with a flathead brush. You have this nice thick lines and thin lines. This is also used for lettering. Maybe you would like to do your name. Okay, maybe you'd like to make letters on your painting. Okay, the flathead brush is also great for mopping in an entire background. And one way that you can make that have a special effect is to take your water and put some drops of water right on the paper. Okay, then you can take your brush and just kind of move it around so it's like you have a puddle on your paper. Okay, and now you're going to think of just mopping your paper. You can take your brush, load it up in a color that you like. I'm going to use this burgundy color, and then you can practice making lines on a wet paper. It's called wet on wet, and look what happens. The water just takes the color and it gives it kind of a fuzzy look. It's really fun if you're painting stuffed animals and you want to have a fuzzy look. Okay, so there's what happens when you start off with wet paper and add a wet watercolor area. So a different technique there as well. The brushes are nicely packaged for you in your package there. You can pull them out. You can pull them all out actually. And now I want you to find a really thin, fine brush, the one that's really pointed. And you can get that wet and dip it in a color that you would like to use. I've already used blue, I've used green, I've used a burgundy. So I'm going to go to orange. I haven't used orange yet. And so I'm taking that fine tip brush and just getting it all loaded up with orange, going around and around so it is nice and loaded. And with this fine tip brush, this is where you can add fine lines once the paint has dried. For example, my first mark I made with watercolor, my very thick brush mark down here is dry now. So I can go over with this very fine thin brush and I can make fine lines right over the top of it. Okay, this is used for if you're doing a still life that has flowers. This can be the stem with the fine tip. Once your area in the background is dry, you can just start down at the bottom and pull that fine pointed tip brush all the way up as far as you want. And then you can go ahead and be creative and add some leaves. The fine tip brush is almost like using your pencil. You can hold it freely and lightly. You can kind of think of it as light as a feather and just get some really delicate little detail lines. Okay, you can see it adds much variety to your image. So that's pretty much what we're going to be doing with the brushes. Lastly, big brushes are great for big areas, to fill in the big area. Think of your big brush as a mop. You're just mopping your background, and then once that's dry, you can use the medium-sized brushes and the fine detail brushes to, you know, color in your details. So next, what we're going to do is on that same paper that you have, at the top, we are just going to blend the primary colors a little. You can actually take yellow, okay? Take your big brush, stir it up in the yellow, and then you can make any little shape that you like. I just made a little rectangle. And then take your yellow again and make another little rectangle on the other side of your paper. So what you have is 2 yellow rectangles, okay? Now we're going to take a little red, the other primary color, and we're going to paint a shape right next to the yellow. That's red. And we're going to overlap a little. We're going to blend those 2 shapes together. And you all know that yellow and red make orange. So give it a try. See if you can take a little red and a little yellow, and when you blend it together, do you see orange in the middle? You should see a little orange right there in the middle. Red and yellow make orange when they're blended together. Okay? The other primary color, yellow and blue, creates an interesting color as well. So next to that yellow, we'll go ahead and paint an area blue. Okay? Then you can get it wet and you can blend those 2 together, and you are going to create a secondary color, green. You should be able to see a little green when you mix blue and yellow. The last colors that we're going to blend would be a rectangle or any shape that you're using right now of red. Okay, and then we're going to take and put blue with that, and it's going to overlap some. And there you're going to get your red and blue together, and you are creating the other secondary hue of purple. So that's really, really fun too. Okay. It's really exciting to use the layering effect when you're painting a scene in watercolor. You can paint the shape and let it dry, and then come back over and put the other color over, layer it, and you'll all of a sudden see that third color. Okay, so that's just a little technique that you can do there. So, and speaking of texture, we have one last thing that we're going to do, and that is we're going to create some texture on your paper. And one way that you can create some texture is with a crayon. So hopefully you have some crayons close by. If not, you can just watch, and then later when you're practicing, you can go ahead and remember this. You take your crayon and you color an area. You can use white, or you can use yellow or orange. I always like to use white, but actually any warm color crayon will work. and you can color that really hard. Then you can take a color and you can paint over that, and the crayon will show up, and there is some texture, okay? So why does this happen? You know that crayons have wax, okay? And water is not going to stick to wax. So anytime you take a little crayon and you rub that on your paper, you draw with a crayon on your paper, and then you paint over it, the crayon is just gonna pop out when you paint it. So it's really interesting and a lot of fun. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can wet part of your paper. Okay, so it's nice and wet. Then you can take a color and paint in the wet on wet. This is another just kind of a little experiment, an example that you can try with your watercolors. Then you're going to take just a little bit of salt, and you're going to take the salt and you're going to sprinkle it on the wet watercolor. And the salt is going to make some really cool little speckled lines, or dots. They almost look like sparkles. And in this watercolor painting, if you look closely up in the sky, you can see that salt was used there, and it made these awesome circle shapes. It just adds a little variety in the background by sprinkling the salt on the watercolor. Okay. So next we're going to talk about still life. Still life is really a style that's much different than landscape or animals, because you can pretty much set up your own still life, and you can make it as difficult as you want, or as easy as you want, or just put a few of your favorite things in, or you can add many things. We have a famous artist here at the Blanden, Marion Smith, and she has this painting in the permanent collection here. It's a beautiful still life. It's done in oil, and she even has some varnishes that she has put over her oil paints to give it just a very awesome look, a very finished look. And here's Marion. She picked out some of her favorite things and she set them on the table, and she went ahead and made this awesome still life oil painting. And as you can see, it's nicely done with all the different reflections and shadows, dark and light areas, and it has such great variety with all of her images. As far as, she has a teapot that's very tall. Her cup and saucer is not as tall, but next to it are lemons that are about the same size. So in designing this composition, she really had to make some decisions as to what is she going to put in and what is she going to leave out. So this is just very nicely done. If you ever get a chance to come to the Blanden, you know, you can go into one of the galleries and see exactly her painting and everything she did for still lifes. So concentrating on a still life is a fabulous way for you to learn how to draw, and you can set up any still life. Here's an example of a guitar, a clarinet, a book, and there's even a chair on the table. There's a little toy and a little airplane and a stuffed animal. And this was completely done just from observing, starting with, you know, what is the tallest, the biggest piece, what is the smallest. And once you start drawing, you're making decisions, you know, how tall is the book compared to the guitar, how many shadows are there, what do I see that's dark, what do I see that's light. And then of course going in at the end and adding some detail makes it very interesting. So, okay. Next, what we are going to do is we are going to think about making our very own still life today. All right? And you can look around something that you have in the kitchen. Maybe it's your favorite fruit, maybe it's your favorite bowl. I picked out one of my favorite fruits, the orange. I love oranges, and this bowl. It has a lot of qualities that would make for an interesting still life. And what we're going to do is go ahead and start that. So you're going to need your new paper that you have. Okay, and what you're going to need then is a pencil. We're just going to lightly sketch the still life first. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so looking at this still life here, you can go ahead and draw where you think the bottom of that bowl is going to be. Okay, so you can just kind of make a little shape, a little kind of almost looks like a smile there on the bottom for the bowl. And then you can come up to the side and make the sides of the bowl. How tall is your bowl? How big is your bowl? How wide is your bowl? You can start at the bottom and make those lines that curve up. Okay, then you can go ahead and make the edge of the bowl, and you're just going to draw from one side to the other. Okay, you can also go with a table line. Okay, make a horizontal line to show that it's connected to something. And then you can have some fun drawing the oranges that you see. You can tell that, or whatever fruit it is that you are drawing. Okay, you can start off with the shape that it is. Okay, these oranges are pretty rounded. I'm making them so they look like some of them are down inside the bowl. I'm making another one here, and although there isn't one on the table, this is where you can use your imagination, and it is entirely up to you what you want to add to this. So I'm going to make another orange that's right down here, and it's on the table. Okay. So there is just a basic sketch on the still life, and next we're going to begin painting it. So what you're going to do is you're going to use, we'll start off with a medium brush. Okay, it's not your really wide one, and it's not the teeny tiny little pointy one, it's the medium. And we're going to start off with yellow. So you can take your brush, get it wet in the water, then you can dip it in the yellow. And we're going to paint yellow areas. Before we do that, we need to pick a side that has a lot of light. Okay. You can put the sun on one side. Okay, this is where you get to use your imagination. If the light were shining on these oranges or on this bowl, which direction do you want the light to come from? Do you want it to come from the side? Do you want it to come straight down the top? Okay, that's going to affect your shadows. So since I have the light coming up here in the corner, I'm going to go ahead and paint the top half that's towards the corner yellow. Each orange will have a yellow area. Okay. and your brush stroke is going right along your pencil lines. The oranges are round, so the brush stroke is going to be curved. Okay, so there's the yellow. Then I'm just going to bring down a little yellow on the table, just to show that there is a little yellow also on the table there. Okay, then I'm going to pick up another brush, another medium brush, and get it wet. And I'm going to next use a little orange. The orange is going to serve as the shadow, and I'm going to begin painting the bottom half of the orange. That is orange, and going to paint right up to the yellow there. Okay. So one half of your orange is really yellowy and bright. The other half, the side that's in the shadow area, is an orange color. Then I'm going to take another brush, just a brush that I haven't used yet, and it's dry. And I'm going to blend the orange and yellow together. I'm just going to swirl it around. Your dry brush is going to be like the blender. It's going to be like the mixer. It's going to mix the yellow and the orange together to get rid of the line, and you might need to use just a little tiny bit of water. So you can use a little bit of water there since it has dried so quickly, but yeah. Okay. Okay, just a little drip of water, and then you can mix it up and blend it with that new brush that you have. Right? Then you can also put some orange shadows under the orange that's on the table. The shadow would be away from the sunlight. Okay, so it would be over there. And you can also put some orange that you would like to have on the table, just to kind of share the colors a little bit, and when you're painting like the tablecloth, you can have some of the colors that are in the fruit in the tablecloth as well. I'm not going to use all orange, but I am going to put a few little orange highlights in there. Okay, so there you have your oranges, and they're in the bowl. Okay, now what we need to do is create the bowl, and we can do something that's a little different with our crayon again. We're going to make some textures, and we're going to use a Crayon Resist. So you can find something that has texture, like something as simple as a bag that the oranges came in. Okay, there's some repeated patterns there. You can use anything that's rough, even like the bottom of your shoe. You can use, I've even tried the handle on a flashlight. You put that under. Anything that has a little rough texture that you can feel around the house, you can put that under your paper. Okay, and then what you do is you take your crayon and you're going to color where you would like to have some repeated shapes, repeated patterns on the bowl. And again, you can use white, or you can use the yellow, yeah, or you can use the orange. Okay. Here's some other little textures that you can see. This flashlight has really some cool textures. You can hear that, and you can put that on there also. and then you would just color it. And you can get some little texture rubbings from that. Okay, so go ahead and take your crayon and color your bowl using again the white or the yellow. Okay. Okay, for this still life, we're going to use the complementary color of orange, which is blue. It's really going to make the painting pop out, and the colors are all going to work very well together. So what you can do is you can take your big brush that you have, you can go ahead and dip it in the water and swirl it around in the blue. And then you can begin painting the bowl, right? It's good just to make a swoop across to see what you have. Start on one edge and one side and just pull the brush straight across. Okay, then if you're not really happy with that color, maybe it's too dark, you can go in and pick maybe a different color. I'm going to pick a lighter shade of blue here. Okay, and then again, just put your brush on one side of the bowl and just pull it straight across. You can flip your brush over, across. Okay, and then when you lift up, you can see some of your textures. You can go back in with that big brush again, reload it in your colors, and then you can use the very tip of the brush and you can go by and outline the edges. Okay, you can share the blue on the tablecloth some. You can dip your brush in the water, load it up, and you can share some of your blue. You can make any kind of a pattern that you would like on the table there. Okay. Okay, then we'll take our fine tip brush, the one that has the real nice pointy edge. We'll go ahead and get that wet. You can put that in a color that you like. And then you can go again across and do some fine details, some lines. You can just pull it straight across. It will give it a fine line if you wish to outline what you've done there. Okay. Then you can go back in and maybe add just a little more to your orange. Okay, and then you can quickly take a dry brush while it's wet and blend that once more. Okay, so you have a still life here that has interesting shapes, has different values, light and dark, highlighted areas, and then you can go ahead and finish your tablecloth. How do you want to finish off the tablecloth? And this can be any colors, any size lines. You can make thick You can make thin. Perhaps you would like to make a pattern. You can make it so it's like checkered, make some different lines that go up and down rather than across. You can just add great variety in what you're doing here. Just make it your own and something that you like. You could even put some wavy lines on there. So yeah, it's just really up to your imagination. Okay, as you can tell, I have a lot of crayons on the bowl, and the watercolor is really rolling off the wax. But when it does stop, it creates a nice little pattern, a little texture. Okay. So, just what is a still life? A still life just is not only objects that are not alive, like a bicycle, a chair, your shoe. It can also be a painting that has people in it, as long as 3/4 to a half of the images in the painting are still life. I've seen some paintings that they have a person in their image, but the majority of the subjects are objects that are not alive. And we have one here at the Blanden, also one of those upstairs, a really nice still life that has a person sitting. Looks like there's a lot of boxes, and just a very interesting painting as well. So watercolor has a very spontaneous quality about it. It's light and airy. The colors are going to run together and blend, and that's what makes it creative, how it is all going to come out. Just in review, here's an example of the wax resist that we did. You took a crayon, yellow, white, or orange. You can do letters, you can draw a picture, and then you paint over it. It's called wax resist. Then remember that with our paint brushes, we can paint very slow lines, or you can take your paintbrush and paint very fast lines. And one of the favorites is rolling the brush. You take your brush, you load it up with paint, you put it right down on your paper and turn it and turn it and turn it with your handle going all the way across. It really creates a nice look. So rolling the brush can be done with all different size of brushes. These brushes were quite big, and the colors are varied. There's a little green, red, and purples. In this painting, if you look, you can see all the different brush techniques that we talked about. There is the rolling of the brush, the green in the background that goes all the way across. There is taking the medium-sized brush and making the blossoms on the flowers and using another color in the middle, so you're not using just one color. And there's also taking the brush and just pushing down for the marks down on the bottom. You just wet your brush, dip it in the color, and you push it down so it's like footprints going across, and it creates an interesting pattern and texture. Then using this small fine tip detail brush, you can see that it's perfect for drawing the stem of the flowers and also the leaves there. Okay, that's just one way there. Okay. Another painting that was done with watercolor, has a lot of the same brush techniques, is this flower scene. Again, rolling the brush across the back, using, you know, a big brush, pushing down like footprints for the patterns in the ground, and then using the medium brushes for the flowers and the fine details for the stem and the leaves. So you can do so many things with watercolors. You can take copy or paper that you might have at home, and you can do what's called a mirror image, where you're just going to take some watercolors, you're going to fold your paper in half. Okay, then you're going to open it up. And using your big brush, you can pick colors that you like. I'm going to put blue across the top. You really want to wet it good. Use lots of water. Okay, then the next color I'm going to use is some yellow. I'm going to put yellow across. I'm working quickly so the paint will not dry. Okay, then I'm going to put a little red in there as well, right there. Okay, next I'm going to use some emerald green, the darker shade of green. Put that over here. Okay, then I'm going to use a darker shade of blue and put that right across the bottom here. Okay. Okay, I'm going to fold that as fast as I can while it's still wet. And I'm going to rub this and make a mirror image. Okay, this is great for if you're painting a landscape. Okay, it creates an interesting look. Then you can go back in with your brush. Pick a brush you haven't used yet. Okay, and since it is a landscape, you can just kind of continue the lines there. Or with the fine tip brush, you could even paint in some little details. If you'd like to paint your house or a barn or just anything that you like about the landscapes, okay? You could paint that in. But there is an example of mirror reflection that you can do with watercolor paints as well. Okay. In this watercolor painting, yellow was the first color, then rolling the brush to show the trees along the horizon line here. In landscape painting, the horizon line is where the sky and the land meet. So everything above here is sky and everything below here is land. And once the yellow is dry, then you can go back in and paint around the blue. And then of course when the blue overlaps a little on the yellow, you're going to get a hint of green that goes along with the painting there. So painting with a fine tip brush is good for prairie lines, prairie grasses. The background in this was painted with the entire big brush, and the same as the bottom was painted with a big brush. That was allowed to dry, and then painting the moon was next, and last was going in with the fine tip brush and painting the leaves and the stems there. Okay, so next with your watercolors, okay, we're just going to start off with the big brush, okay, just the really big brush. And what we're going to do is we're just going to paint a background quickly. It's going to be sky and it's going to be ground. So you can pick any color that you would like in your sky. And we're first of all just going to draw a really light horizon line. And everything from that line above is going to be sky. You can mix it up a little bit. Maybe think of skies or clouds that you recall seeing the other day. It doesn't have to be just a blue sky. If you want to make it at a certain time of the day, like a sunset, you can go ahead and imagine where the sun might be, and go ahead and you can use a little yellow. You can put the yellow reflection that's streaming up into the sky there, like so much like we see at sunset time. You can use a little orange, and you can put that around the sun. You can paint some orange glow into the sky. Okay, you can take your brush, dip it in the water, and then you can blend. You can stretch out and blend the orange. You'll want to leave the orange in between the yellows and in between the blues, and put the orange around the yellow. Okay, then you can come back in with even a hint of pink. We often see pink in the sunset. Reds in the sunset. And they don't have to be just straight lines. They can be diagonal. There's all kinds of shapes. Okay, so there's just an interesting sky, and you can just create, you know, any colors that you would like in your sky. It doesn't have to be exactly just like mine. Then we're going to create a ground, and you can decide what you would like to have for your ground area. Perhaps you would like to have a lot of grass. Perhaps you would like to have a field. You can draw that line and use a line that is diagonal. You can use that's going to lead your eye into the painting. Okay, maybe you can make another line. You can just imagine you're out and you're driving, and what do you see? Maybe you live in the country. You want to draw your country fields. Maybe you're in town. You want to draw the big buildings that you see in town. Maybe you would like to draw your house that you see. Okay, so you can just go ahead and make anything that you would like as far as the land goes there. And it's going to be a little darker on the bottom. Okay, whatever colors you use, greens or browns, in a landscape is going to be darker on the bottom than the sky. The sky is very light and soft and warm colors. Okay, and the ground, especially close to you, is going to be a little darker. And then you can get a gradual change from dark colors to medium to light. You can pick a light green, possibly for your grassy area. Okay, then you can go back and grab your tiny little brush that has the pointed edge, the fine tip brush, and you can use that for drawing. You can think of a building that you would like to put in your landscape. I'm just going to do a barn, and starting off with a triangle shape. Whenever you do buildings, look for the basic design shapes and draw one shape, and one shape will lead to another. Drawing is like putting a puzzle together. You just need to start somewhere, and then you can go ahead and draw each shape, each line. And you can use this tiny little brush as a pencil, and it works very well to get your lines drawn in. And especially with watercolors, it just creates a nice soft line. So then you got your barn shape. Once you have the shape done, you can continue on with other lines that you would like to put in. Maybe you'd like to add a fence, some animals, some trees. Okay, the painting is all yours once you get started. Okay, you just put in what you want, leave out what you want. And again, there's dark and light areas. You know that when the sun is going down in the evening at sunset time, the roof that's facing you, that's towards the viewer, it is going to be dark. You can use any color that's dark. In the color wheels, you can use a brown. It always doesn't have to be black. You can use dark purple. Just any dark color works really well. So, and you can go ahead and just have fun with the dark colors that you see in your watercolor trays. Okay. You can make it your own by adding your favorite animals, people, maybe draw and paint yourself, draw and paint your family that you have. Okay. They could be doing some of your favorite outdoor activities. Okay, then you can go ahead and take your big brush and finish painting in some of the big areas that have not been painted. Okay, maybe you want to bring the colors of the sky down a little. Okay. Maybe you want to carry on some of the greens or the colors of the field. Into what looks like a road. Okay. So have fun with your watercolors. They dry quickly. They are a perfect medium for you at home to paint with. You always have plenty of subjects. Just look around your room, look around your house, paint your family, paint your pets. Just have fun painting with watercolors, and one idea will lead to another. And before you know it, you'll be doing all kinds of paintings. And soon, hopefully, we can bring them all to the Blanden for class and for summer art camps. And I hope all of you have a great November, a great Thanksgiving, a good winter, and we'll see you soon at the Blanden.